I often get the question, what does a leadership team need to do, right? So, how do we form a leadership team? What are they responsible for? How do they make sure things are working correctly? And you might even have multiple leadership teams, but it's always important what they do is a common set of things here. So, let's think about this here. And I'm using team topology shapes to help us think through this problem, right? So, we can have in this org, I have two competing organizations, right? This one and this one here. So in the first one, we have two stream aligned teams and then a platform group, with a stream inside of it. And then the same thing down here. The only difference is the group leadership of those streams is in one case shared across and facilitating all of those teams. And then down here, it's different, right? Actually, we have group leadership for one stream and we have group leadership for another stream. And this one doesn't even have a leadership team. So I want us to think through what that actually looks like for us, right? So if we look over here, we have this one, leadership enables alignment, right? So we have people, process, product and technology. All of these are aligned in the same direction, right? So all three teams are going in the same direction as one another, right? So the way we talk about people topics, right? So our career frameworks, our employee engagement surveys, the kind of culture that we're trying to create, things like this, those are all aligned, right? We're thinking about those the same way. The way the processes work, right? So we are using similar compatible processes with one another, right? So we aren't working on that team over there is in a very water flow environment and ours over here is very agile. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't, but the direction of the future, the direction of travel where we want to go, this is the same, right? So we're leading into the future, right? So that's where the direction of travel with those arrows are, right? Status quo might not be like that, but where we want to get is the same, similar outcome. And then we have here product and technology, right? We can kind of share something meaningful between these teams, right? So if those two streams depend on this one, they're part of an overall vision of where we're going as a product and tech organization. Now, if we look at the one down below, we're missing that enablement, right? So the leadership team should be enabling those teams to share those alignments, right? So your people, your process, your technology, actually all of them are allowed to run in different directions and they all want to run in different directions because they're not sharing a unified group of people who help steer the ship, right? So they all will drift apart. So let's think about that, right? What does that mean? In this case here, you have that leadership group that unifies, aligns the mission, helps the team sense the broader organization, right? So they can actually, instead of every individual team needing to go and understand the organization, we can, and they should do that, but we can streamline a lot of that sensing through that leadership group, right? We can help create a shared constraint that reduces cognitive load. So instead of, for instance, this team uses RabbitMQ and this one uses Kafka and this one uses ZeroMQ or something else. And let's assume they were all doing it for similar reasons. It could be that simply having a wiki document here that explains how to use it would be a lot simpler overall, right? They could all accomplish very similar goals with that one common constraint that says we all agree it makes sense for us to use this one thing so we can build excellence and knowledge base in that one topic. Even though we're in different teams, it helps us reduce cognitive load there. And then a third one here, coordinate support and change for reaching a global optima instead of a local optima. And this is one of the issues we run into with organizations that look like this is all these streams often, let's just say they're very strong teams, right? They have their own missions, their performance is stunning, but they are optimizing for a local mission instead of being part of enabled into a global mission, right? So how do we get into that global mindset when we are kind of isolated, not even siloed, but actually just cut off from interacting with people who help us get that interaction that we need, right? So this is the challenge of that other organization. That other organization is kind of stuck here, right? We have fictitious leadership grouping, by the way, because, in this case, that leadership group is really only enabling one team. It's not really leading multiple. It's almost as if, they are inside of that team itself in the leadership context. In other cases where, an enabling team, helps install skills into a team, which this group should be doing. They should be deepening people, process, product, and tech skills into the teams so they can do more self-leadership, but they are, lacking that kind of force that aligns them between other teams. So in effect, they are essentially part of that team, just non-contributing members of that team. So, and they're not interacting with their other leadership groups either, right? So this is something to think about. And we don't reduce the burdens from teams, right? So this enabling team can help people align, right? If you're aligned on, we're going to share our product mindset, we're going to share our tools. Maybe we have different concepts and different tools, but we're going to share. We're going to help each other do those things. We have the same kind of process and people. That's going to be a differentiator that lets you reduce the burdens from the other teams at a larger scale than everyone doing it individually. Now, something else to think about here is, no interactions keep the teams bound in a shared direction, right? So all of them are allowed to drift in different directions because there's no reason to keep them together, right? The interactions between the teams are what keep teams cohesive. And if they don't interact in any way, there's no reason for them to be cohesive. So I think that's really the most important part when you think about what does a leadership team need to do, especially when you're looking at how do you lead a group of teams, right? It's not giving them necessarily, tasks to do, but you are working on enabling alignment on something useful where there's people, process, and product and tech topics. Now, you might not always need to align everyone inside of that group, and I'll talk about that in the next upcoming video, but this is the core function of your leadership group, right? So making sure that you don't end up in a situation where there's no opportunity to reduce shared burdens and keep people going in the same direction, right? You are enabling the alignment to help everyone move faster. You simplify their cognitive load by keeping them aligned and sharing resources. You sense the organization, you help them understand their own challenges, you give them ways to think through those things, and you work on keeping that group cohesive and up to date with one another. This is the core function of this leadership group that stretches multiple teams.